Welcome to Inside News. I'm Serena, and today is Monday, October 27th, 2025. Tonight, we bring you the essential stories shaping our world, from the major headlines capturing global attention to the events that often slip beyond the mainstream spotlight. Our mission is to deliver not just the day's breaking news, but those crucial developments that deserve greater awareness and understanding. We've organized our coverage by region, ensuring comprehensive global perspective. Let's dive into the principal events. We begin with our top story tonight, coming from the Americas with massive global and economic implications. The United States and China have reached a major framework agreement on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, effectively ending months of high-stakes tension between the world's two largest economies. Washington has confirmed that its threat of 100% tariffs on Chinese goods is now, and I quote, effectively off the table. In return, Beijing has agreed to delay export curbs on critical rare earth minerals for 1 full year and commit to resuming substantial purchases of American soybeans. This represents a significant de-escalation after months of trade hostilities. The immediate market response was extraordinary. The news sent global financial markets into what analysts are calling a state of euphoria. In New York, all three major indices surged to historic all-time highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq, all breaking records simultaneously. This optimism wasn't confined to American markets. The euphoria spread rapidly across Asia, where Japan's Nikkei index smashed through the 50,000-point barrier for the very first time in its history, a remarkable milestone for the world's second-largest economy. However, despite this positive market sentiment, domestic economic challenges continue to plague Washington. The U.S. Federal Reserve is expected to announce an interest rate cut this week, a move intended to support the broader American economy. But the decision is complicated by a significant obstacle: the ongoing U.S. government shutdown, which has halted the release of all official economic data. This includes critical indicators like GDP figures, forcing the Federal Reserve to operate without their usual economic compass, forced to, as economists say, fly blind when making crucial monetary policy decisions. We are also tracking a major environmental threat developing in the Caribbean. Hurricane Melissa has explosively intensified from a tropical storm to a Category 4 hurricane, now boasting maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center projects it will intensify further into a Category 5 storm before making landfall. The hurricane is posing a life-threatening danger to Jamaica, which is currently bracing for a devastating storm surge and rainfall projections exceeding 40 inches in some areas. The storm has already claimed 3 lives in Haiti, where heavy rain and flooding have already begun. Evacuation orders remain in effect across Jamaica, and residents are securing their homes and supplies ahead of the expected impact. Then, turning to the Middle East, where the fragile ceasefire in Gaza is being put to the test once again. U.S. President Donald Trump has given Hamas a 48-hour ultimatum to resume the return of hostage bodies, including the remains of 2 American citizens held since the initial conflict. This ultimatum reflects ongoing tensions despite the formal ceasefire agreement. The International Committee of the Red Cross has confirmed that it is acting as a neutral intermediary in these delicate negotiations, working to escort Hamas search teams into IDF-controlled territory to conduct careful searches for the remains of deceased hostages. This coordination between Israeli forces and Palestinian search teams represents a fragile moment of cooperation in an otherwise deeply divided conflict. Meanwhile, international focus is turning to what experts are calling the yellow line, the IDF-designated ceasefire line that demarcates control of territory in Gaza. Fears are growing among humanitarian organizations and international observers. that this temporary line is becoming a creeping annexation and what may ultimately become a new permanent border. Analysts warn this represents a fundamental shift in the territorial structure of the region. If this line holds as a permanent boundary, it would shrink the Gaza Strip by approximately half its current size, confining 2.1 million Palestinian civilians to the southern portion of the territory, with severe restrictions on movement and access to resources. From the Middle East to Africa, where the humanitarian situation has reached critical levels, United Nations agencies are issuing their starkest warning yet regarding Sudan. They report catastrophic hunger conditions in El Fasher, located in Darfur. Thousands of children are classified as being at imminent risk of death as the city faces a paramilitary siege with no end in sight. A staggering 250,000 civilians remain trapped within the besieged city, with no access to food supplies, clean water, or functioning hospitals. Medical facilities have collapsed, and disease is spreading rapidly. The UN describes the situation as one of the world's most severe humanitarian emergencies. Yet it remains severely under-resourced and underreported internationally. Our focus shifts now to a global environmental crisis centered in Brazil. Coming at a particularly troubling moment, the nation is preparing to host the United Nations COP30 climate summit in just weeks, a summit designed to coordinate global climate action. However, the summit is already in crisis. More than 100 countries have failed to submit their new climate targets on time, indicating a lack of urgency and coordination at the highest levels, compounding this problem significantly. The host nation itself, Brazil, has just approved controversial new oil drilling licenses at the mouth of the Amazon River, one of the world's most critical ecosystems. Environmentalists worldwide are calling this decision an act of sabotage against climate goals, a stunning contradiction just weeks before hosting the planet's major climate conference. The best outcomes are ready tonight. We turn now to underreported events, stories that receive insufficient attention in mainstream media, but carry significant consequences for our understanding of global affairs. We begin in Africa with a political crisis unfolding in Cameroon. Violent unrest has erupted following the disputed re-election of 92-year-old President Paul Biya, who has maintained power since 1982, making him one of the world's longest-serving leaders. Security forces have fired on protesters taking to the streets to challenge the election results, killing at least 4 people in the crackdowns. The opposition has formally rejected the election results, alleging massive fraud and manipulation of voting processes. International observers have raised concerns about the legitimacy of the vote, yet mainstream international coverage has been limited. Moving to the Asia-Pacific region, tensions are flaring dangerously on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Clashes between Pakistani and Afghan forces have left 30 people dead in recent confrontations, including 5 Pakistani soldiers. A Pakistani government minister has issued a stark warning. If ongoing peace talks fail to produce results, the situation could escalate into an open war scenario, threatening regional stability and drawing in neighboring powers with strategic interests in the region. Staying with underreported news, we move to the Americas for developing stories with long-term implications. First, the new race to the moon. NASA has hit a key milestone for its ambitious Artemis II mission by successfully stacking the Orion crew capsule onto its moon rocket, a critical technical achievement. But looking ahead to the critical Artemis III lunar landing mission, NASA is taking an unprecedented step, opening the contract to external competitors. The agency has cited major delays from SpaceX as justification for this competitive approach. NASA's chief administrator has justified the move by directly referencing the race against China, and emphasizing the strategic goal to achieve a lunar landing in this president's term, making the timeline explicitly political and competitive rather than purely scientific. Second, a new U.S. foreign policy approach is being reported with significant implications across Latin America. Observers have nicknamed it the Don Roe Doctrine, a blend of dollar and the historical Monroe Doctrine. The approach uses both sticks and carrots to enforce American interests. The sticks include threatening tariffs, such as 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods. The carrots include financial incentives, such as a $40 billion economic assistance offer to Argentina. Observers say the overarching goal is to enforce U.S. hegemony throughout the hemisphere, while strategically rewarding political allies and punishing those perceived as adversaries. This represents a return to more transactional, interest-based hemispherid policy. Finally, developments in Europe and global technology offer important insight into the future of AI governance. A new global Pew Research Center poll reveals a major trust gap regarding who should regulate artificial intelligence at the international level. The findings are striking. The European Union is the most trusted entity to regulate AI, with 53% of respondents expressing confidence. In sharp contrast, the United States lags significantly behind at 37% trust, and China trails even further at just 27%. This dramatic trust differential puts the European Union in a uniquely powerful position to set global rules and standards for artificial intelligence, a development with enormous implications for technology companies, data privacy, and the future of global digital governance. That is all the time we have for Inside News. Our mission here is to not only cover the headlines that dominate the news cycle, but to bring you the stories that demand greater attention, the developments that deserve to be understood and analyzed. We aim to offer you a fuller, more complete picture of our complex world, connecting dots that mainstream outlets often miss. We believe informed citizens require diverse perspectives and comprehensive coverage. Whether it's the trade agreements reshaping global economics, the humanitarian crises demanding urgent action, or the overlooked policy shifts determining our future, Inside News commits to bringing these stories into focus. I'm Serena. Thank you for joining us, and good journeys to all.